Okay, let's jump right in. When you think about the Roaring Twenties, all that energy, jazz, speakeasies, the economic boom, huge social shifts. Who comes to mind leading the country?
Probably not someone known for being quiet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd picture someone loud, maybe dynamic, possibly even, wild. But right there, at the helm of this incredibly noisy period, was Calvin Coolidge, famously known as Silent Cal.
And that's the paradox, isn't it? That's what our sources really zero in on. This president, defined by his quietness, presiding over arguably one of the loudest times in American history.
It really makes you stop and think, was that silence just like his personality? Or was it something else, maybe a deliberate leadership style?
That's the big question we want to explore today.
Right, so we're doing a deep dive into the materials you shared. We've got pieces from the White House Historical Association, the Miller Center, and one actually titled Unveiling the Enigmatic Silence of Calvin Coolidge. Our goal here is to pull out the key insights, the really notable facts, and understand what these sources tell us about America's 30th president, specifically for you, the listener.
Yeah, well, look at his beginnings, those crucial moments in his political rise, the almost unbelievable way he became president.
Seriously unbelievable.
How he governed during that boom, and then definitely we need to tackle that famous silence. What was really behind it? How did it shape things? Maybe even touch on some personal aspects the sources bring up.
Okay, so where do the sources start his story? Back in Vermont.
Yep. Plymouth, Vermont, born July 4th, 1872, son of a village storekeeper. The sources paint this picture of, really humble, quiet, rural beginnings.
A world away from the 1920s vibe.
Totally. And his early path, according to the sources, was just as quiet and steady. Graduated from Amherst College, with honors actually, then into law and politics in Northampton, Massachusetts. It wasn't like a sudden splash.
No, more like a slow, steady climb.
Methodical. Very methodical. And the sources showed this continued, right? From councilman, climbing the ladder, eventually becoming governor of Massachusetts. And importantly, they note he became thoroughly conservative along this path.
So that foundation was laid down piece by piece, it seems.
Exactly. And that conservative nature, that quiet determination, it got tested early on in a way that really put him on the map nationally. We're talking about the 1919 Boston police strike.
Yes. That's a key moment highlighted in the material. His response was decisive.
Incredibly decisive. Cut right through all the noise and chaos of the strike.
And it gave us that quote.
That quote. It's so famous, and the sources make sure to include it. There is no right to strike against the public safety by anybody, anywhere, anytime. Just boom.
So direct, so terse.
And those few words, delivered with that quiet firmness, just propelled him onto the national stage. It really defined his image on Law and Order.
Which kind of sets the stage for the next almost surreal chapter becoming president. Warren G. Harding dies suddenly, August 2nd, 1923.
And the scene the sources describe for his swearing in, it's like something from a play. It's 2:40 in the morning, August 3rd, back in Vermont.
By kerosene lamplight.
Yeah. And the person giving him the oath of office, his own father.
Because he was a notary public. Just happened to be one.
Right there. Coolidge puts his hand on the family Bible. It's this incredibly quiet, almost private moment of destiny miles away from Washington, D.C., pomp and circumstance.
It feels like it captures the essence of the man himself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Huge responsibility arriving in this very understated, personal way.
It really does. So now he's president. And the sources bring up an interesting point from Alfred E. Smith, who was, a political opponent, but respected him in this sense.
What did Smith say?
Smith argued Coolidge's main job, really, was to restore the dignity and prestige of the presidency. Smith felt it had hit a real low point.
After Harding.
In a time of, as Smith put it, extravagance and waste.
And how did Coolidge approach that?
Well, the sources say his governing philosophy was all about preserving these sort of old moral and economic precept, very conservative, very hands-off, particularly with federal power.
Like he actually refused to use federal power,
yeah.
Right? Like to manage the growing boom or step in for struggling farmers.
Exactly. He actively resisted that.
Why? What's the reasoning the sources offer for that kind of passive stance during such a dynamic period?
The perspective presented is that he believed strongly in fiscal discipline, limited government, and just letting the economy run its course without interference. His first message to Congress, December 23, laid it out. Isolationism in foreign policy, big tax cuts, government economy, and very limited aid to farmers.
Small government vision for a big boom time.
Pretty much. And for a while, it looked like it was working perfectly. He got popular fast, benefiting hugely from what everyone started calling Coolidge prosperity.
Riding that wave.
Absolutely. Led to a landslide win in 1924. Over 54% of the popular vote. And his inaugural address in 25 basically said, the country's achieved a state of contentment seldom before seen. His plan. Keep it that way. Maintain the status quo.
And the sources point to clear examples of this inaction, as they call it, like vetoing farm relief bills.
Twice.
And killing that plan for federal electric power on the Tennessee River. It seems like he was actively trying not to expand government reach.
And this is where that Silent Cal nickname really connects to his governing style, It wasn't just that he was quiet personally, it mirrored his reluctance to act big, federally speaking. People saw the reserve, the careful words, and connected it to his policies.
There's that quote from Walter Lippmann in 1926, which is fascinating. Lippmann called Coolidge's political genius his talent for effectively doing nothing.
Such a great line, isn't it? The genius of doing nothing.
Right.
Lippmann's take was that this active inactivity, as he called it, was exactly what the country, or at least certain parts of it, wanted then, especially business wanting to be left alone, and maybe people tired of complex government stuff.
So it frames the silence and the inaction, not as like a failing, but as a calculated, maybe even brilliant strategy for those specific times.
Possibly. And the anecdotes about his silence, they're legendary, like the one his wife Grace told.
Yeah.
About the dinner guest betting she could get him to say more than 2 words.
Oh, yeah. And his response just looks away and says, "You lose." Perfect deadpan delivery, that dry wit coming through.
And then maybe the ultimate example, that statement from South Dakota in 1928.
I do not choose to run for president in 1928. 6 words to end a presidency.
No.
So simple. So quiet.
Incredible. But what's interesting, and the sources make this contrast, is despite being Silent Cal, he was apparently one of the most accessible presidents up to that time.
Yeah, that's a surprising detail. He met with tons of delegations, let himself be photographed all the time. He seemed to get the growing power of media images, even if he wasn't making long speeches.
He understood the visual aspect, maybe, even without the volume. And didn't he give a reason for his silence to Bernard Baruch? Something practical? He did, according to one source. Said that saying just yes or no was often too much. Why? Because it winds them up for 20 minutes more.
Huh. So it's partly about just efficiency? Avoiding lengthy follow-ups?
Seems like it. Conserving energy, maybe. But behind all that, the politics, the wit, the silence the sources show, there was this immense personal tragedy that hit him hard during his presidency.
I mean, the death of his son, Calvin Jr. That was in 1924, right? July.
Yes. And the details are just heartbreaking. He died from blood poisoning, sepsis, that started from a blister he got playing tennis on the White House courts.
Oh, that's awful. Just devastating for any parent. The sources say it hit Coolidge really hard, that he was deeply affected, mourning for the rest of his time in office.
Yeah, visibly affected. And this is where historians and our sources touch on this debate, wonder about the impact. Did that grief deepen his natural quietness, his solitude? Did it maybe influence his decisions, his detachment?
Or the flip side, did it maybe sharpen his focus somehow? Give him a different kind of perspective, maybe shielded by grief from some of the usual political noise.
It adds another really complex layer to understanding Silent Cal, doesn't it? It makes him even more enigmatic.
Which loops back to that bombshell announcement in 1928, "I do not choose to run." Was that just wanting to retire?
Mm-hmm.
Especially after everything, the long career, the personal loss.
Or, and this is a question the sources kind of float, could his unique viewpoint, maybe shaped by the silence, maybe by the grief, have given him some kind of foresight? Did he sense something coming? Warnings about the economy that others, caught up in the boom, just missed?
Did the quiet let him hear something the noise drowned out for everyone else?
It's a provocative thought. We know, of course, the Great Depression hit not long after he left, and his own words later, before he died in early 1933, are quite telling. "I feel I no longer fit in with these times."
Wow, that's quite a statement.
So his presidency remains this fascinating case study. Was the silence his strength, keeping things simple? Or was it a limitation, maybe blinding him? Did he really preside over prosperity, or just over the end of a party that was destined to crash? The sources give us all these facets to consider.
It's just amazing how much these sources illuminate about a man famous for saying so little. You've got the quiet Vermonter, the decisive governor, that incredible midnight oath.
The active inactivity, navigating boom times, and then that profound personal tragedy.
And it really underscores how leadership styles can look so different depending on the era, on the circumstances.
Absolutely. One era's genius might be another's missed opportunity.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on, drawing just from the ideas we've discussed from these sources. Considering Coolidge's deep personal loss and that famous public silence, is it possible that his very quietness, his reserved perspective, actually offered some unique insights into where things were headed? Insights that maybe got lost or ignored in the general noise and optimism of the Roaring Twenties.
It definitely makes you think about the value we place on different kinds of leadership voices, doesn't it? What part of Coolidge's story, as laid out in these materials, really stands out to you? Was that silence a strategy, a shield, a burden, or maybe all of the above? The sources give us the outlines, but the interpretation, especially in those quiet spaces, is still open.